Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Monkey Wrench. I'm Kelly, the monkey with the wrench. Today we are working on, well, it's a bit of a mess. It's a Dixie Chopper. Dixie Chopper was the first zero turn fastest mower in the world when they first came out, and they actually build them really well. And what we're looking at here is a big old 60-inch cut Silver Eagle 2760. It's got a new motor installed in it. I didn't do it. They did it before they found me. And it's a big old 27 horse Briggs commercial. And basically it runs okay, but it has a series of issues. So this video is for the owner, Miguel, and his partner. They want to put this thing back into service. They're trying to run their entire service on one machine right now because a couple of their machines are down, and they couldn't find a good mechanic until they found me. Actually, I was talking to another customer of mine at a gas station. They overheard it while they were pumping gas, exchanged cards, and there you go. So you never know. Take 2 minutes to stop and talk to your customers, your friends. You never know what's going to come of it. So basically what we have going on here, first off, and I started this thing up and drove it the other day. I just cut the grass around here. This tire will not hold air. It's got zero tread on it. It really needs to be replaced, but in the very least, it'll hold air for a couple hours, but it needs a tube. It really needs to be replaced. Now, if we look on over this side, you'll see right there that that tire is touching the deck. The deck actually pushes the tire in whenever the tire tries to move. There's a reason for that. And you have two different size tires on this thing. That's a large tire, which is fine, absolutely fine. That's a smaller tire, which is fine, absolutely fine. You can see here that it almost touches the top of the spindle. And over here, on the smaller one, I can fit my fingers in there, which tells me that, you know, a tire went bad and somebody needed something in an emergency, and there you go, they put the tire on. Not a huge deal. The size tire only changes the level of the deck a little bit. It's not a big deal. What we do have going on in here, from what I can tell, is the inner axles here, these are sleeves in most cases that slide in, are not correct. The tire is kind of moving, and it's going to ream out the inside of the rim. And on this side, I don't know if you can see that. Try and zoom in. You can see a space between the top of that black slug and the tire rim itself. That's not the correct axle that goes through there. So those things need to be addressed. Now, the reason that this tire is hitting the deck is because this tire is part of a suspension. This is an independent suspension that's on these Dixies. And basically, the wheel is in this position. And there's a set of springs here on each side. One here, one on the other side, on each wheel. And it's supposed to take that wheel and kick it down to hold the machine up. And that way it has suspension. Well, those springs are shot. They're completely compressed. And they're not holding this. This should be way down here. That spring should be pushing that way down here. And those two springs allow for suspension. Well, it's not. So it's basically just, it's supposed to be like this, and the springs went bad, so it just collapsed. All the weight has it pushing down. So that issue has to be addressed. You really should get new tires, new rims, new axles, new inner spindle axles, and springs on both of those tires. Now, I can't imagine that independently those parts would be very expensive. Together for the entire front, I'll have to look all this stuff up. But those things need to be addressed, or you can't use the machine. Now, we also have a problem with our arms, our steering arms. Okay, now they work okay. And you see that one, when I push it that way towards the seat, pretty solid. This one is real wobbly. If you can see that bolt right there, watch it move. Okay, it's kind of hard to see. Hope you can see it, but that whole thing is moving. Where this one right here is not moving when I move the arm. That tells me that your control box right there is either loose or it's broken. And that's pretty common, especially when you put some serious hours on a machine. And if this thing's being used commercially, which it is, it's got some serious hours on it. So it should not be wobbling. I don't know if we can get a view here. Right there. See how that whole thing's moving? So that has to be addressed. Like I said, it could be loose. Hopefully you can see that whole thing wobbling. It's so bright out here, I can't see the camera screen. But you see how it's moving? That's not supposed to move that way. Okay, it's supposed to move that way, but it isn't supposed to be wobbling that way. So that has to be addressed. We might have to get a new control box, or I might be able to disconnect it, pull it apart, clean it up, put it back on, tighten it down. So I don't know about that. Now, as far as the belts are concerned, the belts don't look too bad. They actually look like, at least the deck belt, looks like it's in decent condition. But here's what I want to show you. Let's see if I can get this thing. Oh, real quick. This is your throttle lever here. Okay. Somebody has the throttle resting right on the muffler, which has been there for a while. And the cable is severely bent. And so instead of it moving your throttle arm, which is right there, I don't know if you'll be able to see that, whether it doesn't move anyway. Your throttle cable is shot. It was kinked and it's broken and it's shot. Now, when I went to use this thing the other day, again, try and get you in frame here, and I can't see shit because it's so bright. But when I went to use it the other day to test it out, it starts and it runs and it idles fine and it drives fine. But the minute you go to put the blades on, you can't get them to come up to speed. And if you try to cut grass with it, it brings the blades to a stop. Now that could be a throttle issue because your throttle cable's broken and it's not throttled up, but I just want to show you what that's like. On the blades and there wasn't enough in the motor to even crank it. So I have a feeling that the throttle is just all the way in the low position. With these having an electric PTO, you have to have the motor revved up to full throttle before you turn the blades on, because there's so much going on and so much pressure on that motor that it just wants to slow it down. So if you don't have full RPMs, it won't come up to speed. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, because that's free. I'm going to go ahead and take your throttle cable off, and I'm going to put a string on there so that I can pull the throttle all the way to the full running position and see if that takes care of that problem off the top of my head. So we know we have to deal with a brand new throttle cable. Your hour meter's not coming on, but I don't know if you care about that. We've got to deal with the front end, and those are just the things that I found right off the beginning. So this is just sort of a video for you to watch so that you understand the parts I'm talking about. And here in a few minutes, when I pull the throttle cable off and kind of rig the throttle so it stays open, I'm gonna turn it back on, try to run it, try to run the blades, and see if that's the only problem. If it's not, we could have an issue with the PTO clutch, we could have an issue with a belt under there, we could have an issue with a steering pump, I don't know. So that's what I'm gonna work on right now, and I'll let you know in a minute. Okay, I got the throttle cable loose enough to be able to work it from low throttle to high, but there's something seriously wrong with it. It's got a weird pop to it, and I can't keep the idle up. And when I turn on the blades, it still wants to die. Let's try this again, hoping you're in frame. Can't get the throttle to stay. So when I pull the throttle all the way, now it wants to fucking die. Of course it does. Now it's up. Watch what happens when I pull the PTO. See how it dies? It takes a while to come back up to speed, and it's still not coming all the way to speed. Then when I kill the PTO, see, now that's back on idle. When I kill the PTO, it wants to come back up to RPMs. So in the very least, you have an issue with the carburetor. You could have a weak fuel pump. It could be a half a dozen things. I'm gonna fiddle with it and see what I can find out. As soon as you turn that PTO on, it wants to die. And it's not full throttle. So I'm gonna mess with it, I'll let you know. Now I have the throttle jammed all the way open just to show you what's going on. The minute I either turn on the blades, it wants to kill the motor, or the minute I try to drive it and put pressure on it by using the steering arms, it wants to slow down and die again. try to drive it, obviously it dies. And there's nothing that I can see off the top of my head so far that's causing that. So I'm gonna have to figure that out. It could be a pulley underneath that's dragging, but it doesn't seem like that to me. First of all, it seems like it's not getting enough power. It's not getting, the carburetor's not running right. It seems to me that maybe one of the pumps is causing too much pressure, but when I try to drive it and the blades are not turned on, it drives okay. It doesn't just try to kill the motor the minute I start driving it. It's just when the blades are turned on. So let me have a think about that and figure out what I think's going on. Now I have a sneaking suspicion that we're only running on one cylinder. This is a twin cylinder engine, and I believe we're only running on one side. So what I'm gonna do is pull one spark plug off, try to start the motor, see if it runs, because it'll run on one spark plug. If it does, great. I'll plug that spark plug in, take the other spark plug out, try the same test. Let's see if it's only firing on one plug. Alright, so the right side one is off. Let's see if it'll start. Okay, it's starting. The brakes on this do not work. So we know that it's firing on the left side because I took the right side off. So it's firing on the left side. Now we're going to put the right side back on, take the left side off, and try the same test. I'm just curious because it just doesn't have enough power to run. I think we might only be running on one side. We'll know here in just a second. I think that's our culprit. Okay, I'm gonna grab a spark checker and we're gonna see if we're getting any spark. But you can see right there that the right side boot is on. And you can see here the left side is disconnected. When this side was plugged in and that side was off, it started and ran, which tells me that I took that side off first, which means this side ran. So it tells me that this one is not running. So I'm going to plug this one back in because this is what I did first. And we're going to get a spark tester and we're going to plug that in and see if it's working. Okay, what I have here is just a basic inline spark tester. Plugs in there, plugs onto the spark plug. And I'm suspecting it's not working because it wouldn't run, we should not see any spark. Okay, it started and ran. Oh, that's because I have this side plugged back on. We have to leave this side off because we're only attempting to run it on one side at a time. We know that that side worked. So this time, let's see what happens. Well, we're getting a spark. Okay, maybe I'm backwards. I'm in it. Sorry about the noise. I don't know how much I lost or how much I got. Usually, when one side of the motor is firing and the other is not, the first thing to go is usually the spark. And that's usually the magneto. Spark plugs don't go bad the way you think. So 9 times out of 10 it's the magneto. But when I put the spark tester on both sides, we're getting spark. Which means, even though it's only running on one cylinder, because when I plug in basically the right side and unplug the left side, it won't start. But when I do the opposite and I plug in the left side and unplug the right side, it starts, which tells me that the left cylinder is firing just fine. So that's why it'll start and run and even drive. It's not pulling that much out of the motor. It's a 26 horse motor, which means you're running on about 13 horses right now. But then when you go to add the blades and put a load on it, it doesn't have enough power to fire that big thing up. So that tells me now we have to dig into the motor. And it's a shame because apparently these guys bought and had a new motor installed. Now I don't know whether it was new or used. I didn't do the work. He reiterated to me this morning on the phone that he had a new motor installed and he put too much money into the machine not to fix it up the rest of the way and get it running. It could be a stuck valve. It could be a blown head gasket on the right side. It could be a bent push rod. It could be a number of things. The next thing I'd have to do in order to check it out would be to pull the valve cover off on the right hand side, the cylinder that's not firing, spin the key, make sure that both rocker arms are performing correctly, opening and closing, making sure that the push rods are in the correct place, and kind of go from there. We may have to dig into the whole motor to find out what's wrong with it, but it's not a spark issue. So that's where we are for right now. Okay, so we're going to do a compression test because we clearly have spark, but we do not have one side of the motor running. So let me see if I can set up the camera here for you to be able to see. It doesn't look like it. It's going to be a pain in my ass. I just get overheated out here sometimes. It is too damn hot. And I just get a little overheated. So let's just see if that'll hold. Let me hit the key and see what kind of compression we're getting. This is the good cylinder. This is the one that it will fire on. What the hell is going on with this damn tripod? Wow. We're getting, Jesus. We're getting about 35 pounds of pressure. And this thing should have anywhere from 60 to 90 pounds. Let's do that again. We're back to 0. I'm just gonna make sure this is in tight. It is. That's good. Hit the key again. And come back over here and holy crap. 25, 30, looks like about 40 pounds is what we're getting here. This is the good side. So I'm gonna hook this up on the other side. Give me a second. That is utterly surprising to me because I knew one side was firing and the other one wasn't. But we should be getting easily double that amount of compression coming out the other side. But anyway, I've got the compression tester hooked up on the side that's bad. Let's hit the key. And we're getting 0 compression, maybe 5 pounds on this side. Let's reset it. Well, there's your problem. Wow. There, whoever sold this motor, installed it, I don't know if it was new or used or what. This motor is, it's crap. There's the oil dipstick. It's low on oil, but it's got oil in it, plenty enough not to worry about. In the very least, I suspect that we have blown head gaskets. That could be one place that we're losing compression. And the reason I say at least blown head gaskets is we're only getting 35 PSI on the good cylinder. I'm gonna look that up, but we should be getting 60, 70, 80 pounds in the very least. A push mower gets 60 pounds. This is a 26 horse motor. I mean, it could be upwards of 120 pounds. And we're getting 35 to 40 pounds on the good cylinder and 0 on the other side, which tells me, in the very least, I'm sure we have blown head gaskets, one on each side, and I have to take this valve cover off and find out if our rocker arms are moving, find out if we have bent push rods, missing something. I'm going to take this valve cover off, and we're going to take a look at that before I finish this video. Okay, I've taken the 4 bolts out of the valve cover, and I've loosened it a bit. See if I can get it the rest of the way off. Yep. We have... Wow. Wow. Let's see if we can get in here and see this. There's not a hell of a lot of room in here. Let's get that out of the way, if at all possible. Yeah, look, we're just dangling here. This connecting rod is completely out, and so is this one. Oh shit. And it looks, oh hell, I can't tell. I can feel this one. Let me try and get it out. Oh yeah, that's bent to hell. Let's put that up there. See if the other one's even in there. Shit, the other one's not even in there, which means it got pushed into the engine. It's now inside the engine in the oil pan at the bottom, which means the entire engine has to come off, be taken apart, and you have to dig that out of there, which means, like I said, the whole motor is going to have to come off the machine, be taken completely apart, just to find that. You can't leave that in the engine. And of course they have to be replaced. Let's see if I can show you here just how bent this one is. Okay, you see that? See if I can, you see how bent that is? That's why it came out. And this would be it's the aluminum one, so that's the intake, and the exhaust one is the one that got shoved into the motor. That's why we're not firing. The engine's not connected, parts are broken. So we're looking at a complete rebuild. I don't know how many hours are on this engine. I know nothing about it. I'm gonna have to talk to our man and find out. Now, what caused that? Could be a lot of things. Definitely could have overheated. If a head gasket went bad, the oil could have gotten out, but it's not really low on oil, so to speak. A lot of times what happens on these heads is it's an aluminum head, but it has a steel insert that goes in, that the connecting rod slides in and out of. And when they overheat, when it gets hot, it could have come out of its place. It gets pressed in, so it could work itself out one way or the other, causing undue stress on the connecting rod. I've seen that a bunch of times where the head's gone bad and that insert's come undone. There is a way to tap it in and reseat it. It's not a permanent fix, but you know, if you have a machine of your own that you're just using around the house like this, you can get away with it if you're just using it an hour a week or every other week. But on a commercial motor, there's no way. Those heads would have to be replaced. Usually what happens when that insert comes out of the way, it sticks out further than it should. So then the valves won't open correctly, and the rocker arms press against the dang thing, and it just bends the connecting rod. And as soon as they bend, they fall out of the way. In this case, it fell out of the way, went through the keeper on the inside of the motor, and shot it inside the motor. So this motor right now is complete. It's a paperweight. Can it be rebuilt? Yes. From a standpoint of someone like me who works on them, I'm not going to give you a price on the video, because it's labor intensive and the parts are expensive. But can it be rebuilt? Yeah, absolutely. It could be that when they installed the new motor, they just didn't set the valves right. So the valves were too tight or too loose, and when one rocker arm came out, hit the other one, shoved it into the engine. I won't know the cause until I remove the motor from the machine, turn it upside down, break it open, and see what's going on the inside. Is it worth rebuilding? Yeah, considering a motor like this could cost anywhere from $2,500 to $3,500 new, and that's not including installation. You know, you can get away with rebuilding it for half that price. Is it worth it? Yes. So who knows? We may fix it up on this channel. But there's your problem. Zero compression on one side, and I would think that we have in the minimum valves that need to be reset on the left side and a blown head gasket, because we're only getting 35 pounds of pressure on that side, half of what it should be. So thanks for stopping by. More than likely I'm gonna pull this video back off of this channel, re-edit it, and put it on my regular channel, Monkey Wrench. So thanks for stopping by. Subscribe on either channel, and we'll see you soon.